President Trump's decision to slap tariffs on imported solar cells and washing machines. That earned rebukes from Beijing and Seoul, but the White House seems confident it won't spark a trans-Pacific trade war. Let's discuss all of this with Bloomberg editor Jodi Schneider. Look, Jodi, many of our guests said we're not near a trade war, but certainly we seem to be heading towards something like that. What does all this mean for Trump's agenda going forward?
Well, he's getting a lot of pushback, both in the U.S. from Republican senators as well, but also on the world stage. Davos is all about globalization. He's headed there. But also in the U.S., his own party is concerned about what this could do to the economy. There's been, it's been an economic growth bursts in the past year or so, and they're really afraid that this could hurt. It could hurt domestic manufacturers as well. So there's a lot of concern here. Interestingly, the solar industry in the U.S. says it could have been worse. The 30% tariffs, they say, were not as bad as they could have been. So there's a little bit there of, I guess, a muted sigh of relief. But among world leaders and among people on Capitol Hill, there is concern.
Right. So it could have been worse. It wasn't, but it's still it's still heading in the wrong direction. Now, this trade action, though, how much does that put the U.S. at risk?
Yeah, not only does it somewhat put the U.S. at risk and the economic boom at risk, but it also further isolates the U.S. on the world stage. This, of course, is not the first trade action President Trump has made that does that. Shortly after taking office, he said the U.S. would not participate in the Trans-Pacific Partnership, TPP, which, by the way, the 11 other nations say they're going to go ahead with now. They're going to really try to make this work even without the U.S. But also, he's by pulling out of the climate accord and other things, he's really kind of had to go it alone with the U.S. on the world stage. And this is yet another indication of that. He had said in the campaign he was going to take action against what he viewed as unfair trade practices, and now he's done it just before an important world meeting.
Yeah, and just before he heads to Davos next, and I can't help but contrast the speech that President Xi Jinping made last year as defender of globalization, which was already quite remarkable, and what Trump is going to say. What expectations do we have? How will he be received?
Yeah, it's really interesting, isn't it? Because it is such a different message than the globalization message that we heard from the Chinese president last year, and that we're hearing from other leaders there who've already given some speeches. We heard from Prime Minister Trudeau, the Canadian Prime Minister. We heard from Modi in India already, talking about the benefits of globalization and how important trade is.
Right.
That's the typical message at Davos. And here we have the American president going against that, saying, well, I feel the need to impose tariffs, even though I don't want to hurt my economy. I feel it's important to take this step. So clearly he made a political calculation that it was more important to do this, to kind of act tough. And maybe he's going to try to then, once he gets to Davos, sort of soften that message. But clearly going in there, it was an America first, tough on foreign competitors action.